What is a totally wrong thing that has become so widespread it's not considered wrong anymore? How much material classified as recyclable is, in truth, not recyclable? It's more a marketing whim that kept people using plastics. Why else would China stop taking the world's trash? They could do nothing with it but bury it in the ground. Tying your health insurance to your work. USA. If you become too sick to work, example, terminal cancer, you lose your job and your healthcare coverage. Dental not being included in healthcare. How is the health of your mouth and teeth separate from the health of the rest of your body and necessitate totally different, and pricey, insurance? Perfect attendance being celebrated for kids. When my kid is sick, he stays home. He's healthy too. I can't imagine having a kid with a disorder that makes them prone to being sick more often and then not getting some shitty little award for not being in school every day. Kids get sick. It's not wise to send them to school anyway so they can spread their germs. Single-use plastic. It is the stupidest thing humans can do. You need spaghetti so you buy them wrapped in plastic, a material that, if not burned, will disintegrate into ever smaller particles that will creep their way back into the bodies of all living things on Earth. Is that really worth it for a little bit of convenience? I diagnosed myself with a brain tumor due to headaches, was so convinced that I got a CT scan and turned out there was nothing wrong. Anxiety is a bitch and will help convince you of anything negative. I had hypochondria as a teen. The most horrifying by far was when I gave myself an AIDS diagnosis and kept it all to myself. Only now, many years later, have I been able to share this with my closest friends. I was sure I wasn't going to see my 18th birthday. There was no way possible I could have had it, and I didn't have any symptoms. This internal panic lasted for about 2 months and became to a halt because I realized how ridiculous it was. With that stopped also my hypochondriac thoughts once and for all. I know some people aren't that lucky and can't shut it down with just the power of logic. That's why hypochondria is no joke. That shit eats you up inside. When I was 11, I convinced myself I was bleeding to death. I thought I was peeing or pooping buckets of blood, and that's definitely not good. Right before I went to say goodbye to my family, I remembered that thing they told us about insects said like 6 months ago. It was a period. I got my period. I thought I had food poisoning for a month, eliminated everything possible from my diet and started probiotics to reset my digestion. Nothing helped. Turns out it was a late-life pregnancy. We'd thought we were past that point. Surprise. My tongue looked weird and I googled it. I thought I had thrush, so I put gentian violet on my tongue, turning it blue. I went to the doctor later with my blue-ass tongue and she was like, "This isn't thrush, stop using the internet instead of coming to me." I spent years feeling exhausted and like I had to throw up, especially after going out for dinner. I figured I was lazy and had a delicate digestive system that was prone to food poisoning. Nope, it was celiac disease. And the only time I ate bread that made the symptoms really obvious was when I ate at restaurants. Ovarian cysts. Had quite some pain. Pregnancy test was negative and had no other explanation for the pain and the area it was in. Turned out I was in fact pregnant and had a nasty case of nesting pain. The pregnancy test was a false negative. I was very relieved to be wrong. The pregnancy was planned. Ovarian cysts were not. I was having frequent episodes where my vision would blur, my tongue felt swollen, my speech would get slurred, my concentration would drop to null, I would stagger, I would have goosebumps. These symptoms would come all at once and would last for hours. Once they were gone, I felt exhausted. I thought for sure that it was something neurological. Lots of testing later, turns out it was a conversion disorder. The symptoms were an adverse reaction to stress and anxiety. Treatment is helping. Drugs, therapy, etc. The episodes are a lot less frequent now, and also less severe, but I was forced to retire because of this. I didn't like that part, still having trouble adjusting to that part. Last year one got pregnant. For the first time, I was shocked that no one mentioned how painful it is, like I had these ongoing sharp pains in my stomach. I don't usually like taking painkillers, but I was taking so many a colleague even noticed and told me I should slow down on them. Yeah, I know pregnancy isn't that painful. Unless it's ectopic. Thankfully had the surgery before it ruptured, and a month before the world shut down. My lower back usually aches for the first minute of the day whenever I would wake up for the last 2 years. I'm 23 years old and I worked at a warehouse for a summer. I chalked it up to just morning aches and pains. It never really bothered me because I never had any pain that lasted for more than 5 minutes in my lower back, so I didn't think much of it. One morning I woke up and I just cried because it hurt so much to move. I was constantly taking Robex, and when the pain started traveling down my right leg I would take Advil depending on what hurt the most at the time. I ended up going to a chiropractor down the street from my home, and she thought I had a herniated disc and sciatic issues, so I didn't think much of it. Eventually it got to the point where I needed gabapentin prescriptions to help numb my nerves. 2 months passed and it was progressing and getting worse. So she sent me for an X-ray referral, both of us thinking nothing would show up because it was clearly just nerve pain and a herniated disc that would heal over time. Wrong. Boy, we were both so wrong. When I went in for my appointment, she sat me down and started off with, "So you're not going to believe this," and then proceeded to tell me the X-ray results. I have moderate scoliosis, degenerative disc disease, bone spurs between my L1, L5, and I have spinal stenosis. I had an MRI back in October, fatally in my abdomen, appendicitis scare, which showed the part of my spine that would cause me pain in the near future, and the doctor who checked my X-rays used that scan as a cross-reference just because they were curious and saw it on my file, which led to the stenosis discovery. So now I am currently waiting for another MRI referral to focus solely on those spots to determine how bad everything is, and I have a spinal surgeon referral as well. I'd also like to add I am in Canada and my family doctor took me off of his list right before the pandemic, November to December 2019, and I have been unable to get one since, which is why my chiropractor did the X-ray referral and went over the results with me. I've been calling clinics non-stop. I'm on the government list. It's hell for me right now trying to find a doctor while dealing with this sudden bombshell. The waiting time for the MRI is between 4–8 months where I live. CFS. Me. I had many of the symptoms and was consistently refused medical help because I was told that I was making it all up, as the blood tests showed that there was nothing wrong with me. Also a hallmark of CFS. Me. Turns out that I have an autoimmune issue that's treatable. Well, that's 6 years of my life that I'm not getting back. I was nauseous and vomiting all the time at work and home and just about everywhere else. I thought I was in liver failure. The first 2 doctors I saw dismissed me, said it was the flu. Can the flu last 6 months, fucking idiots? The 3rd doctor I went to was skeptical, but I demanded a full blood panel. Turns out I was wrong. It wasn't liver failure, it was kidney failure. The doctor was stunned and extremely apologetic. I totally needed a kidney transplant and it saved my life. That I hurt my spine rather drastically in a fall on black ice. Within a few days of the fall, every time I looked at my feet I got an electric shock from my neck to my feet, and then my legs were going numb. Like shit, man. I fucked my back up. Nope, completely wrong. Turns out I have multiple sclerosis. I have a lot of internal fixation metal, especially in my right leg. I was walking across my kitchen with my adopted kitten, come on sweet baby, Let's go to be a An incredibly loud pop went off on my right knee. Managed to hop onto my left leg, not wake anyone up with my scream, and not squish the kitten. I wobbled my way back to my room. I was confident I'd broken one of my screws or one had popped out of the plate. Nope. Many x-rays, MRIs, and an orthoscopic surgery. Turns out that pop was the sound of my ACL blowing out. I had an allograft ACL surgery done in November. Edit, cat tax. I still have my spoiled little adorable bastard. First time I had unprotected sex, I had convinced myself I had HIV. I had just gotten divorced and hooked up with a girl I knew in high school. We didn't use protection, and a few weeks later I was getting these raised welts on my arms and inner thighs. Google told me one of the things it could be was HIV rash. My doctor, who I've known my whole life, said I was an idiot, did an STD test, and diagnosed me with bug bites. My neighbors had brought bed bugs into our apartment building, so I'm clean and STD free, but it also taught me not to Google symptoms for my mental health. Strep throat when I was 26, got some Advil, went back to work. Thought I could only sleep sitting in bed because laying down made me unable to breathe. I looked like shit for 3 days. Co-workers forced me to go home and see a doctor. I had mono. Had to miss work for 2 weeks. I get extremely itchy on my belly and groin area. I always think it's because I did a bad job rinsing soap off after taking a bath. It's because of the oral steroids I take for my allergies. This has happened 4 times in the last 5 years, and I forget every damn time. I thought I was tired all the time because I didn't eat healthy and was chubby/didn't exercise. I took naps and began to more frequently lose focus at work. I took a blood test because our country said they were desperate for blood donors. Due to COVID, less people were giving. Turns out my iron was 7. Normal range is between 3,300. I had iron deficient anemia. It was so low. I got an iron infusion and 5 days later felt incredible. That I was going to need a kidney transplant in the near future. Rewind a year, admitted to the hospital for an untreated UTI that spread to my kidneys, causing me to go septic. Stayed for about 4 days. While being released, asked the doctor if my kidneys were damaged and he said yes. Too drunk, depressed to go to the specialist the next day. Fast forward a couple months and I had stopped drinking and finally started taking care of my health. The anxiety of what was wrong with my kidneys eventually outweighed my medical anxiety. Went to the doctor yesterday and my kidney and liver numbers are actually near perfect according to my doctor. I was very fortunate it ended up that way. Don't ever assume a UTI will clear up on its own. It won't. Stomach cancer. One day a huge amount of blood in my stool and was convinced I was going to die. Google confirmed my prognosis. Forgot about the large amount of beets eaten the prior day. Next day all the blood was gone and I'm now back on the road to recovery. Narcissistic personality disorder. I used to do a lot of maladaptive daydreaming and I misunderstood a comment on the internet that made me think I had NPD. Thankfully I know how to speak the language of the country I was living in at the time, and there was a psych hospital nearby that charged a reasonable amount and had an appointment available not long after that. I wish everyone who complains about self-diagnosis of mental illnesses, especially the ones who bitch about them non-stop, would call the applicable members of their government about making affordable mental health care available to more people. In January of 2020 me and a bunch of people in my class got sick all of a sudden. I felt like I was dying. My chest hurt, head hurt, fever, lightheaded, and when I fell asleep I couldn't breathe. When I got back, everyone was joking, saying that I got that new virus from China, but at the time there was only one case that was a week prior. I had no idea what I actually had, but fast forward 2 months later, it turns out it was in fact COVID, and many other schools in my area had similar incidents happen months before there were even people getting tested. Every physical illness to do with the digestive system, including but not limited to stomach cancer, ulcers, celiac diseases, etc. Turns out, all of it was just another side effect of anxiety disorders, that despite all other symptoms I absolutely denied having. I went to the hospital 3 different times because I thought I was having a heart attack. Turns out they were panic attacks each time. I have meds now to prevent panic attacks. One doctor was annoyed, which I found funny. Dude, I thought I was dying. One of those trips involved a volunteer fire department and an ambulance ride because I was camping far from any hospital. Self-diagnosed severe depression that more or less rendered me incapable of normal functioning, could barely get out of bed in the morning, lacked the desire or energy to do much of anything, and felt like even trying to get help was pointless, which I attributed it to the depression itself. Turns out I had a severe vitamin B12 deficiency, and the symptoms are scarily similar. The fact that I was a bit depressed, but not more than any stressed out young adult, made me tunnel vision on that and ignore any other causes that may be contributing. Don't neglect your bodies like I did, people. That sinking feeling of despair and hopelessness is not always your brain fucking with you. Sometimes it's your body's way of crying out for help. This has changed a lot since COVID, I'm assuming, but people going to work when they're sick. Not sure what it's like in the rest of the world, but I feel like in the US we've been conditioned to feel like it's worse to be an inconvenience by not showing up to work than going to work sick, miserable, and getting everyone else sick. Using your children to become an influencer. I have an Instagram page where I share play ideas as an educator, but my kids' faces are never in the photos. I don't mention their names either. So many parents with similar accounts are posting daily numerous photos and videos of their kids to thousands of followers and getting them involved in live feeds and stories. We have got a generation of kids who in 10-15 years' time will have their entire childhood documented online, and it will all have been done without their consent. Edit. Thank you so much for all the upvotes and awards. I am just glad to see it isn't just me, as Insta seems to be full of oversharing moms. I was beginning to think it is just me who treats my children like they are in the witness protection scheme. Maybe this is just a me thing. But as someone who is adopted, I am really bothered by adoptive parents who lie to their kids. I think starting your relationship with your child based on a lie is completely wrong, and it will come back to bite you later. Unfortunately, some parents who cannot biologically have children will choose to supplement this by adopting a kid and telling that kid they gave birth to them. This needlessly stigmatizes adoption by making it a shameful secret, while also making sure that if this child finds out later in life, they will resent their parents 100% and never trust them again. It's just awful. My parents were completely transparent with me from a really young age, and I grew up well. I love my parents and personally have no desire to ever meet my biological mother. Every adopted kid is different, but they all deserve to be told the truth. Multi-level marketing company groups that target women who peak in high school or college and lure them to think it'll make them boss babes by harassing their personal connections and contacts about leggings/candles/skincare/nails/supplements. How medical professionals are expected to work unpaid as a part of their schooling, and especially that they work exhausting 12-plus-hour shifts. You'd think in a field where people's choices have immense lifetime or life or death consequences, they would be encouraged to be on the top of their game by being well rested, etc. It's idiotic how just because it's a competitive field it has to be to the point of being unsafe. Does anyone else think it's weird that we all know that our clothes, electronics, and pretty much anything else we buy is made by sweatshop or literally slave labor, and everyone seems to be fine with that? Edit. Wow, I didn't expect so many people to read and respond to everyone saying there's nothing average people can do about it, or asking me what average people can do about it. There are a few simple things you can do. Shop less. Don't buy things you don't need. Shop secondhand. Take care of the things you do have. Make them last. Write your legislators and write corporations themselves and let them know that what they're doing is not okay. Not everyone can be perfect and do everything, but everyone can do something.